Hi there, and welcome to Central Texas Gardener. I'm Tom Spencer. If you're looking for plants that don't need a lot of care, succulents should be on the list. Today, Cindy Arredondo from Desert to Tropics explains how she uses them in what she calls patioscaping and tablescaping. On tour, we visit a landscape renovation that clarifies and connects its many destinations.
This garden takes its cue from the setting that draws an extended family and their friends to its harbors every day. When owners Pamela and Scott had ideas to make it easier for the constant traffic flow, they took their designs to landscape architect James David.
It was about remodeling an existing garden and sort of bringing it up to date and making it work a little better than it did. It's really about clarity and making the spaces work better.
One space that made work better was the driveway, giving it turnaround room for easier navigation from the hilltop entrance and for grandson Trip. The new driveway also buffers and yet connects the house with the guest house.
We needed to make a connection between those two buildings and also make a point of arrival for vehicles coming down the hill to the main house. It wasn't clear which was the main house, and it wasn't clear when a person arrived at the property where they should go. At the entrance, we added epay and steel to just make a more contemporary topping and shade structure for the entrance to the house. But also, again, to focus attention on the entrance and make sure that people know that when they arrive at the property, this is the place to go.
His driveway design smoothly connects it to another destination. The front garden demanded easy care and ability to withstand trip on wheels. James designed it for foot traffic too, and easier access to the back from the cove dock and guest house. In back, he added a privacy break against the narrow cove.
Because it's a peninsula sitting out in the lake, and it's really beautiful, and so we wanted you to see the lake, but see it through all these frame spaces that we made with the trees and the shrubs.
Pamela had another idea to frame the space.
We built the fireplace because we really wanted to give this whole fireplace area a sense of privacy and sort of block it from the lake. So that when you're out here with a fire at night, there's a sense of enclosure and a sense of warmth.
At the same time, they wanted a seamless connection to other destinations and perspectives.
Concrete was used on this project because it was the unifying element that sort of brought the whole project together, because it did break down into many, many spaces. And although I personally don't like the term garden rooms, it broke down into a series of garden rooms. And the concrete was the element that and the gravel were two elements that sort of unified and brought everything together. It's constantly telling the eye what to look at and how to proceed.
It was Pamela's idea to sprinkle the concrete with salt to give it a rougher texture.
And I love stone, and Austin has so much beautiful stone, not only limestone but granite. And I've used it for years, but I really love the play now of using less stone and more concrete, because I love the way the concrete makes this base, this strong base, and I think it complements the limestone.
James used concrete and gravel to direct traffic to the broadest viewpoint. He connected its focus to the patio's intimacy and reinforced the journey of united perspectives. When James saw where everyone proceeded to sit on the dock, he renovated its fountain.
And so it was just a way to make that a little bit more of an important space.
Since everyone eventually ends up on the pool patio, James lengthened its arbor to extend its connecting lines. Like any renewal, it started with need, vision, and teamwork.
One of the things that always makes a project successful for me, when it's a collaboration that works between the clients, between the landscape architects, and between the contractors. And I worked with Jackson Broussard and Dale Singelman, plus we had a wonderful concrete guy, And we were all involved in making this a great project. And it's not just one person's idea. It's a group of people coming together and deciding the best way to go.
I love James David's gardens whenever I see them. Thanks for opening up your garden gates to us. Right now we're going to be talking with Cindy Arredondo from Desert to Tropicals. It's a website that offers beautiful succulent plants to the area. And I know that you offer to the public through the website and also through local nurseries, right?
Absolutely. Support your local nursery.
Yeah. Well, Cindy, the plants you brought are just mind-blowing, and I've enjoyed so much just getting to know you talking here on the set. And what I've heard is that you kind of fell into this through your relationship with your husband.
Absolutely. This is his hobby and passion, and we have turned it into a career over the last 10 years.
That's terrific. Now tell me all the different uses that people are putting these plants to and how you're helping kind of people rethink how to do weddings and table arrangements and things like that using these succulents.
Absolutely. Succulents are very versatile and they're very durable, and that makes them great for our climate as well as our decorating needs. So whereas more traditional plants have waned, succulents are becoming more popular, and they are being used in weddings as well as for succulent wreaths and topiaries as opposed to the ivies that most people are familiar with. They also make great patio plants, so you can patio scape with succulents. They can go into the sun, the shade, and even inside.
Well, you talk about patio scaping, and I love that because as people are getting more practical about their lives, they're downsizing, they're not wanting to garden with huge yards, not everybody anyway, and they're looking to do, they want interest, they want to bring some of the life of the outdoors into their lives. They want variety, but they have much more limited space. And you even talk about tablescaping, don't you?
Absolutely. Tablescaping is perfect. So whether you're a student on a fixed budget or you've got a wonderful poolside table you'd like to spruce up, they're perfect because, again, they can take full sun and have more vivid color. They offer an eclectic look, and some are even cold hardy, so you can leave them out year-round and just enjoy them.
Well, you've brought so many cool plants. I really want to jump in, and we're going to start with a hot-looking one. This is one that the color just really jumps out at me, and I would guess this to be a sun lover, just from the look of it.
Absolutely. The more sun, the more red it's going to become. It's a crassula, also known as campfire.
I can see why they call it campfire.
Absolutely. She's blazing out of the pot.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And with more sun, she becomes even more red. And very light on the watering. You could water once a week in the heat of summer and enjoy that color. Wow.
Well, I could see where it would fool a few hummingbirds. They'd probably come check it out, I would think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's just really terrific. And just the, in addition to the colors on these, the forms and the way they spill out of the pots too is so attractive. The next grouping that we have here, these are all furry-looking little guys. I really love the look of these. And tell me, I know there's a form of kalanchoe in there.
Right. There's two kalanchoes. There's a kalanchoe tomentosa variety panda ears, which is the silvery gray one. It feels very velvety, so it's great for children to enjoy the texture. Also, the chocolate soldier is the darker, more bronze variety.
Okay.
Then the little one that looks like a cub's paw actually is a cotyledon cub's paw, and it's beautiful. It'll have red ribbing, a little more sun.
I tell you, I love the look of these plants. And tomentos means hairy in the botanical world, and so folks at home, if you can see the sheen on these things. Those are little hairs, and I think kids would love these plants.
Absolutely. Whenever we do a show and kids come around, they want to touch, and a lot of times parents will say, keep your hands free. But it's fabulous to have something that engages them and engages their senses as well.
Yeah.
So children, the seeing impaired, have also, we've been told that they're getting them as a gift for someone who may not be able to visually appreciate them. But texture-wise, they can enjoy the different shapes of the leaves and the velvety smoothness.
That's a great idea. We have a mix of different things over here, and this one, I'm a big fan of the agaves, and this to me looks like a little miniature agave in a pot, and love the form of it. So striking, so architectural.
It is. That's Echeveria agavoides, and it's cold hardy and sun loving. So it's another succulent you can leave out year round. And with bright, bright light, it's going to get more and more red along the tips. And it's fabulous.
Yeah. And this, you know, obviously these are very xeric plants. And we were talking a little while ago, and you gave me some tips about how do you know when to water these? Say you have one in a pot. How do you know when to water and when not to?
Well, when it's in a pot, after you water it, you can feel how heavy the pot is, and you can either wait for it to be completely dry and feel how light it is, or you can look at the plant closely and see that if it looks shriveled like a raisin, it is okay. It just needs to be plumped back up, and so go ahead, douse them really well. A lot of times people think that because it's a xeric plant, watering it will kill it. So they 2 tablespoons of water, and I say no, douse it really well, let it saturate the pot completely, but it'll plump back up and be just fine. If it's a stem succulent, you can actually feel the plant itself, and if it's firm like a potato, then you know that you can just leave it alone, it's set to go. But when it's firm like a tomato and it has just a little bit of give like a perfect tomato, then go ahead and water it. She's ready.
Good tips. Very good tips. Well, we have another plant here. Again, striking form, beautiful color patterning on this. And what are we looking at here?
This is a Zebra Haworthia bold, and a lot of times customers ask for plants that they can enjoy inside, whether it's in a room that's not very brightly lit, no direct sunlight, or in an office that's just getting fluorescent lighting. And this is an excellent choice. It will cluster, get about 4 to 5 inches in height, and then just pup out at the base, and you can separate those pups and plant them elsewhere, or you can allow it to just fill into the pot. But the color is really striking.
Zebra says it all. It's got the striking pattern to it that's really, really cool. And this one, I love all these grays and the little hints of blue sometimes in these plants. And this is a really nice specimen.
This is an Echeveria, and Echeverias, they're very versatile as well within their own genus. They some like sun, some like shade. This is a sun-loving one that is also cold hardy, so you can leave it out year round. Plant it in the garden, it's going to do that same thing as far as spreading goes. Okay.
Well, again, people see the Echeverias all over, and I just wanted to hit that. Now, we have something cool here, and I just want to show this. Now, you can knock the leaves off these guys real easy.
They're so sensitive.
You know, they're pretty sensitive about that. But as you were unpacking, we found this. It's a leaf with, and I think the folks can see that pretty clearly, with roots. And this is a great way to propagate them, right?
Absolutely. If you ever think you've damaged your plant, in fact, you've only created more. And so if you allow the root, or if you allow the leaf to dry, just leave it down where you found it, it will send out these beneficiary roots, and out pops a new plant. And so never worry you've killed them.
Right. And you know, I have some of these that in crassulas in my garden that are spilling out of pots. Leaves break off and they sprout in the ground underneath, and so now I have them growing all around the pots as well.
Exactly.
Well, so many plants to talk about, and one plant family that I absolutely love are the sansevierias, commonly called mother-in-law's tongue or snake plant.
Right.
And I love this form. It's just, you know, just going in every direction, you know.
This is the mother-in-law's daughter. This is the twisted sister.
Okay.
And her leaves will curl. She makes a great inside succulent, outside, you know, patio in the shade. But they get about 12 to 16 inches in height, and continue popping out babies.
Well, I just love these, and again, these grow indoors. They grow in patios and in shaded protection.
Exactly.
And just a super house plant.
A really bright office plant. A lot of times when people have plants in their office, it's
boring.
It is. And so this offers you a little bit of a blonde twist. And so with the variegation, you can definitely tell a plant will like less sun. And sansevierias, they would love office spaces.
Right. Well, we've been talking about crassulas. Here's another form of crassula, right?
Graptopetalum.
Oh, graptopetalum. Okay. All right. Well, and great form again.
Graptopetalum rosum. This is becoming more and more popular in gardens because when people have a place that where everything else will die, these will actually flourish. And so with more sun, they will become more colorful. Less sun, they will become more green. But cold hardy, you can plant them and forget them.
Well, great colors, so many different forms. I'm going to have to grab this one because we're running out of time, but this is a kalanchoe, folks. Absolutely spectacular. And again,
Kalanchoe thricefolia.
Yeah.
This is also known as a paddle plant, or obviously a lobster tail. And with bright light, more red.
It's deserttotropicals.com.
Desert to tropics.
Deserttotropix.com.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And we really appreciate you coming on board, and
Thank
hope
you.
you get a lot of visitors for all these cool plants, which are again available at lots of local nurseries.
Absolutely. Just go to your local nursery and ask for Desert to Tropics succulents.
All right, thanks very much, Cindy. And coming up next, it's Skip.
Hello and welcome to Down to Earth. This week's question regards blooms in the shade. How do I have flowers in shady spots? Now, if you have a new neighborhood, they're typically treeless and we have plenty of sunlight for growing flowers. But as neighborhoods get older and those wonderful trees start to produce the shade which we love on a Texas summer, it gets more difficult to find flowers that'll grow in the shade. But there are a number of ways to get that color in the shade, and one of the most common is impatiens. Impatiens bloom very well in quite a bit of shade. In fact, if you put them in the sun, you're going to be watering them several times a day to keep them from wilting. Begonias do pretty well in quite a bit of shade too. The green-leafed and the burgundy-leaf types do quite well. The fibrous-rooted begonias, that's what we're referring to. There's a plant called wishbone flower, or taurinia, that does well in the shade if it's fairly bright shade. And I mentioned shrimp plant once before. It's an excellent choice, a much taller plant, but it does provide some color. And then Jacobinia, which provides a really big, beautiful bloom and does quite well in the shade. And don't forget those shade plants that have beautiful foliage, such as the Persian shield with its purplish silver foliage. If there's fairly decent sunlight, it produces that color quite well. In deep shade, it loses some of that color. And then the most famous foliage plant of all in the Texas summers are the caladiums. Caladiums put up the big heart-shaped leaves, and they do quite well in shade, providing a nice splash of color in those dark areas. This week's featured plant is potato vine. Potato vine is actually kin to potatoes and tomatoes in our vegetable gardens, but this is a poisonous plant, one that you wouldn't want to eat. So it's not one to use around areas where there are very small children. They may be tempted to pick the little fruits off and eat them. Not extremely poisonous, but it is poisonous. Potato vine, though, is a beautiful ornamental. It grows in sun or in shade, and it's a fairly tame vine. It doesn't just take over the world like some vines do. You can plant it in an area where it gets fairly decent light, fairly bright shade, in other words, and it'll bloom well. The most common blooms are the blue types. However, there are some white-flowered forms that do quite well also. And one that I'm especially fond of has a variegated type of foliage, which really brightens up those shady spots nicely. So in addition to the white blooms, you're getting the variegated foliage, which is really quite attractive. A little bit of water keeps it going. It's a very tough vine and one that does well despite our soils and climate. Out in the garden, we want to stop any broadleaf weed killer applications that you might have been doing in the lawn. Now, we don't recommend those in general, but if you have been using them, keep in mind that they are very stressful to St. Augustine, and now that the temperature is up above 85 degrees on a regular basis, they're really going to stress your grass, and you're going to end up with more problems on the grass than the weed problems that they solve. New woody plants need special care now that it's warming up. If you planted a shrub or a tree, perhaps last fall or during the winter or spring, it's still trying to get roots established out into the ground. You want to make sure and soak those root balls regularly with a good deep soaking of water. If you depend on a thumb on the end of a garden hose, you'll think you're really wetting it, but then if you look and dig down after that, you'll see you barely wet the soil at all. I like to build a berm of soil around the plants, about 4 or 5 inches high and maybe 3 feet in diameter. Think of it as a big soil donut on the ground around the plant. And then fill that with water, and that'll ensure a deep soaking of the root ball. And you can do that once or twice a week, depending on the soil and the plant and how much sun that it's getting. But that way you'll make sure and keep that plant surviving through this first critical summer. Those are a good investment, and you spent some money on them, so take care of them, and they'll not only survive, but they'll grow faster for you. Any spring bulbs that the foliage has yellowed on need to be cut on back now, and if you've got any rose plants, go ahead and feed those to keep them blooming. For more tips and to contact the Extension office in your county, visit klru.org/CTG.
Thanks, Skip. Now let's check in with John Dromgoole for Backyard Basics.
Hello gardening friends, welcome to Backyard Basics. One of the things that we find on soil tests quite a bit here in Central Texas is a lack of nitrogen. When you get these tests in, there's different labs, but you'll pretty much see the same thing, that nitrogen is very low. That's what that red color indicates on this one. Other ingredients are high, other nutrients are in there. Some are adequate. This is marginal right here, but this is the nitrogen and it is low. And we see that quite frequently. So for the natural gardener, the organic gardener, there are several options for the gardener to use. And there are a bunch of organic and natural fertilizers available on the market around here. One of the essential things, though, about this being available, these things are not always available to the garden. They have to go through a process where the microorganisms can convert them into an available form. So that's how the organic technique works. And so one of the things that we start with is our home compost pile. This is a real good place to build some of the compost that we need in the garden, because this is what holds it in place. This compost right here is essential for the nitrogen to be in that form. This is an energy source for the bacteria, and then, like you see in this picture right here, the food scraps are the feed for the bacteria. So we're doing the same thing. We add a lot of compost to the garden, and then when we add these nutrients, that's the feed for the microorganisms, and they change it into that available form. There's a whole bunch of them available, many options for you. For example, in a liquid style, this is fish emulsion right here. This is about 3% nitrogen. This one right here is about 2% nitrogen. You'll find different levels of that at the nurseries, usually pretty low, but very effective. This type of nitrogen is more quickly available to the plants, and I even like to use it as a foliar feed when I notice that the leaves are kind of getting yellow, and they would just be a pale yellow. There wouldn't be any markings, and the veins wouldn't be darker in the leaf yellow. It's just a pale yellow and a lack of vigor in the plant. So we'll go through some of these options right here. One of the most natural ones of them all is earthworm castings. Earthworm castings is 1% nitrogen, but when you put a seedling in, if you add it to the growing medium right under the seedling or a seed starter, they jump. They have a great start. They're not overfed, but they have that 1% nitrogen. Here's another one right here. We find this one a lot, coffee grounds. Coffee grounds can also be up to 2%, generally in that 1 to 2% range of nitrogen. This is a good way to amend the soil. It opens the soil up also. Probably those other parts are more necessary than just the nitrogen itself, because it fluffs up the soil very nicely. Here's another one that we see a lot out there. This is turkey compost. It's about 2% nitrogen. Here's one that rosarians really love. Everybody, when they use alfalfa meal, sees the benefit of this great one. It's a 3-1-2 formula, and it has triacanthanol, which is something that promotes growth. This is what the rosarians love about it. Cottonseed meal, this is available in the area. Now we get the nitrogen going up a little bit. This is a 7-2-1, so 7% nitrogen in this one, and it helps acidify the soil over time just a little bit. The granular organic fertilizers, there's a whole bunch of them out there. This one is an 8-2-4, so it's 8% nitrogen. That's essential. This is a good way to feed the lawn, as a matter of fact, one of those areas that needs a lot of nitrogen. And here's feather meal. This is probably one of the highest sources of nitrogen out there. It's a 12-0-0. So if you need a bunch of nitrogen, or you want an economical way to put nitrogen out there, in other words, you could use this at half of its recommended rate, then that's another good one. And then finally, when you're mowing your lawn, go ahead and leave the grass clippings. Much of the fertilizer that was in the soil is now in the grass clipping itself. So when we're mowing, we always use a mulching mower so that the blades are small, don't create a thatch down there, and then that extra nitrogen that would be wasted if you gathered it, although you could put it in the compost pile if you had thatch. But still, that's one of the best ways for the organic gardener or any gardener to keep the nitrogen going. Just leave the leaves out there. So as you can see, there are many options, but the most important thing is you have to have some compost in the soil first, and then these other things work very well, or it'll be a very, very slow release. So these are the options, natural and organic fertilizers. When you do a soil test and you see it's low in nitrogen, these are some of the best options. For Backyard Basics, I'm John Dromgoole. I'll see you next time.
For more tips, online video, and our blog, visit klru.org/ctg. Next week, meet Patrick Kerwin's favorite palms for garden structure. Until then, I'll see you in the garden. Visit klru.org/ctg to learn more about today's program, upcoming events, and to sign up for our electronic newsletter. Check out John's how-to tips and visit Trish's Corner for ideas inside and out. Get growing at klru.org/ctg.